Hello, everyone. This is going to be a quick overview of mostly what you can expect from this semester in OChem Lab, as well as a good old classic syllabus overview. So let's jump right in and see what the semester is all about. So first of all, one of the things I want to make sure that everyone is aware of is that this lab includes 3 separate sections. So we have a Tuesday section, a Wednesday section, and a Thursday section. So each of these will have a slightly different TA. I do want you to make note of the other 2 sections, just in case that you are unable to make your section, you might be able to make one of the other ones. So one of the first things I want you to be aware of is that I'm always around, always available to try and help you out with anything. So don't be afraid to stop by my office. It's 2340. I'm always going to be present in my office hours. However, you'll often find my office door open. If so, feel free to stop by anytime. You can always try and email me with a question. I'll generally respond to emails in between 9 to 5, of course, unless I'm teaching or in lab. Outside of that time, I do like to sleep, and I'd encourage you to do the same. However, I do have a much more extended appointment schedule available on my Google Calendar. So if you are unable to make these office hours, again, just feel free to book an appointment using my Google Calendar. By the way, as far as the course itself, I do want to make note that we are using a laboratory textbook. So this is the MORIG, and I do expect you to be able to complete the readings from the textbook. Also, this is the big one I expect you to buy is I do want to make sure you have a bound composition notebook. You should have one of these from Gen Chem. If you have some extra space in your notebook, that is fine. If you need to get a new one, that's okay too. So when you're completing, again, a spiral notebook won't actually count. Also, expect everybody to get a model kit. We are going to be using these for one of our labs. I believe it's experiment 3. But in addition, if you're taking the class, you will make note that this is going to be very useful in studying. So I highly encourage that you do get a model kit. All right, so I want to go ahead and walk through what the course expectations are, kind of by what I expect you to do before lab every week, during lab every week, and after lab every week. So one of the big things is every week I'm going to expect you to read the experiment page on Canvas. So there is going to be a main page which should list everything that you have to do any given week. One of the big things is this will start with is what are the sections for MORIG that you should be aware of before that week. These are going to really detail the more practical skills, such as how do you set up a distillation apparatus, what's involved both in the concepts and the practice of setting up a thin layer chromatography. Those are some examples from the first couple of labs. In addition, there should be a link to the assigned lab manual sections. So the lab manual includes not just the lab that we're performing, but we'll also end up including things such as backgrounds of how to complete a lab notebook, or how to complete a lab notebook, a safety presentation, or any number of other topics. Also, there should be a pre-lab video like this one that you're going to be expected to watch every week. These should almost always be up by the Friday before. I apologize if it goes up any later. I'm going to aim for getting it ready by about 7 o'clock by the Friday before. That way, over the weekend, you can go ahead and complete the rest of your pre-lab, such as writing a pre-lab notebook. So again, I'll go over the expectations of this a little bit later. But there'll also be a pre-lab quiz, which should mostly touch on aspects that are going to be present in your pre-lab notebook, but also may be present in one of the various readings. And these quizzes are going to be due on Canvas every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So apologies to the Thursday lab. Then we're going to go ahead and meet in the Chem Lounge. If you're not aware, that's going to be Chem 3135. So once you come into lab, we're going to One of the first things you're going to do is the TA will usually be sitting at the back of the room. Go ahead and hand in your lab notebook to the TA. They're going to go ahead and check to make sure you have everything present. They may leave a couple of notes of things you should pay attention to next time. Then I'm going to do a quick pre-lab lecture. This will often include a safety lecture. However, as we get later into the semester, I'm going to start to expect the students to do several of these safety lectures, and these are going to be group projects. So watch out when we get to that point and we start assigning the safety lectures. All right, once we're done with all of the pre-lab information, we're going to head on over to the actual org lab. At this point, the only thing I expect you to bring is your notebook and your appropriate safety gear. This means no computers, no printed off lab information. Everything you need to know about how to perform that lab should be present in the notebook. Again, a couple other things, maybe a calculator or a pencil, but otherwise, we're really focusing on notebook and safety gear. Again, I'm going to give a quick in-lab reminder. So this is going to be the second half of that quick pre-lab, where I really want to show you exactly how a piece of lab equipment is set up, or things to watch out for physically. Where are the reagents? And these will change a little bit from week to week. Then we're going to dive right into the lab. Again, make sure to take notes of everything you do. We'll talk a little bit more in the first week of lab of what I expect for on lab notes. Also, make sure that you come in knowing exactly what you want to do in that lab. Sometimes the lab time can be a little bit tight, and the lab sections will be a little fuller. So again, if you come in knowing exactly what you're going to do, you should be able to get out a little early. If you're trying to figure it out as you go, you may end up, I may end up having to boot you out of lab at the end. So again, try and come in with a clear-cut plan of what you're going to do. At the end of lab, you're going to check out your notebook, either with me or with one of the TAs before you leave. Again, this just makes sure that you completed everything. You had a rough idea of what you were doing, and you've got a good idea of what's going to go involved in some of the post lab exercises. So once you've left the lab, one of the first things you should probably do is scan your notebook. These are going to be due as scans to Canvas. I do expect them to be as a single PDF file, not 6 different JPEGs. So again, you can use a PDF scanner on your phone, and there are some good guidelines of how you can obtain some of these available on Canvas. And these are going to be due by the end of the day, Friday. However, to prevent you forgetting to do it, I highly encourage you to do this as soon as you left lab. Everything should already be there, and you should be good. Then some weeks we're going to have some post-lab worksheets. If you're given one of these, they're going to be due by the beginning of the next lab. However, some weeks instead, we're going to have a written write-up. So for example, the first lab, you're going to write up a version of your procedure, essentially a full version of what you did that lab. Other labs are going to include information like results, discussion sections, and at the end of the lab, you're going to be writing a full report. Some other assignments that are going to be due throughout the behaviors. First, I'm going to be grading based on general lab behavior. So this includes things like, did you show up to lab on time? Did you finish in a timely fashion? Did you destroy things in the lab? Did you leave a mess? These are essentially just making sure that you're not a menace. There is going to be 3 separate labs where you're going to hand in your final products for grading. These are going to be the only grades on performance you have. Again, just try and aim you have something. There will occasionally be some extra bragging rights if you get the best product in class. We're also going to have 2 outside of class assignments. And these are both going to be related to using computer software. So the first is going to be learning how to draw chemical structures, and the second is going to be using a computational modeling software. So again, because these are more computer-based, we don't have quite enough space for everybody to be in the computer lab at the same time. So we're going to have these as outside of class assignments. And as I said previously, everyone's going to be doing a group project, including a lab safety presentation, and I'll give more information on that as we go through the semester. So rough guidelines of what we're going to be doing all semester is right up here. So again, this week we're not meeting. Next week is mostly going to be about check-in and setup, and there should be a video forthcoming for that. Then we're going to actually do distillations. And you'll notice most of these labs are going to be 2 to 3 weeks. Special note goes to experiment 3, which is going to be a dry lab, and we'll include that outside of lab worksheet. And you're going to notice we're going to have some assignments, some worksheets, and some written sections, such as a results and discussion section. If you have to do these, there's often a little extra time to complete them. And again, one of the things I do want to make note, that last week of class is going to be just for cleanup and checkout, and over Thanksgiving week on that Tuesday and Wednesday section, we are going to have makeup lab sections for you to go ahead and come into, as well as another set of makeup sections on the Wednesday and Thursday over fall break. So again, if you need to make up, we've got those two separate occasions, but it's always beneficial if you can make labs in ad time. So a couple reminders going into the semester. Most of this should be familiar from last, if you had Gen Chem. First of all, I expect a high degree of lab safety because this semester we're going to start working with chemicals that can provide health hazards. Most of it will be relatively safe. But because of that, we're going to upgrade to expecting everyone to have a lab coat. This means you're going to want to purchase a lab coat to wear in lab. So whenever chemicals are being used, I expect everyone to wear a lab coat. If you have not purchased one yet, which I expect nobody to have done, there's already sample lab coats up in the chem lounge for you to go ahead and try on. So you can then go downstairs to the bookstore to buy the appropriately sized lab coat. Also, if you're interested, the Chem Club usually will be tie-dyeing lab coats some point about the second or third week of class. Also, again, shouldn't be anything new. Always need to wear closed-toed shoes. So essentially, shoes that cover your entire foot and loose, long pants. So again, the long cloth pants. So this means jeans or sweats. I don't want anybody to be wearing any sort of synthetic leggings. The reason why is those synthetic leggings are quite notorious for taking up organic solvents, which promptly dissolve your pants. So I don't want that to happen. They also have, in general, any tight clothing will tend to hold any chemical spills close to your skin. This should be less of a problem for shirts because we are going to be wearing lab coats, but it can be particularly problematic for pants. And again, if I see you wearing shorts, I'm kicking you out. The general guideline is you should be showing no bare skin, your shoulders or below. Because this is the portion of your skin where you're most likely to spill on. Similarly, I expect everyone to already have a pair of splash-proof goggles. If you do not, you can go ahead and buy a set from the bookstore. And again, whenever the chemicals are being out, you should always be wearing your goggles. If we're, say, the only people present in lab are just doing some quick calculations or writing in their notebook, or at the beginning of lab when I'm doing some quick announcements, if you're not wearing your goggles then, it's fine. This also gives time for people who've left their goggles in their drawers to go ahead and grab them. Also, during that first day, I want you to pay very close attention where all the safety equipment is, because you never know when you're going to need it, as well as we're going to be disposing our own waste this semester. So make sure you know where the waste is, and always make sure you pay attention to which waste bucket you go into. There is some notorious examples where if you put your waste in your wrong bucket, it can cause, explosions of the waste buckets. And I don't want that to happen. Also, one of the things I want you to make note of, at several points in the semester, I'm going to expect you to come in and collect data outside of lab. When you do so, please come in during regular hours. That way the lab should be open. But also make sure that you're always accompanied by someone else. Preferably, there should be somebody else from class, but feel free to grab a roommate or anyone else. The big idea is I want somebody to always be within shouting distance. That way, in case something happens, there's someone who can help you out. There are several chemicals here that may just cause you to pass out if you handle them inappropriately. Shouldn't be the case for any of you, but things have been known to happen. So always practice the partner system in lab. All right, now, as I said earlier, I'd talk about my expectations of lab notebooks. And you may note that expectations of lab notebooks can change from class to class. One of the big things I want to make sure is that your lab notebook should provide enough information for you to know exactly what you did during lab. And also, because it's the only source of information you have in lab, it should give you all the information you need to conduct the lab. So we can really split our lab notebook into two portions: what you need to do before lab and what you need to do during lab. So before lab, a couple things you need. So first of all, make sure you have a title so you know what lab you're doing. So you usually want the full title at the beginning of the section and an abbreviated title at the top of each subsequent page, so you know when you go from one experiment to the next. Then you're going to want a purpose, which is just 1 to 3 sentences summarizing what the goal of the experiment is and how you're going to go ahead and accomplish that. So for example, our first experiment is we're going to try and make bioethanol from a sustainable fuel source. And we're going to do that through fermentation and distillation. Fermentation to make the ethanol, distillation to separate it out. So then you're going to need to have any pre-lab information. So big things that this is often going to include is if there's a chemical reaction, what is it? Is there a relevant mechanism? Table of reagents. So this is all of your reagents that you're going to be using, and any special precautions or safety information. And for some of the later labs, full step schemes. So again, this should be present before you even get into the procedure. So the goal in this is your procedure should be an easy to follow bullet point procedure. So think about the best recipes. They often are nicely separated, each bullet point no longer than a sentence. My classic line is that you should be able to follow this procedure if the lab is on fire, because you never know, it might be. So this should include all of the information that you're going to need to conduct the lab, because again, it's the only piece of information that you're allowed. Also, along with your procedure, you can include some space right next to your procedure to make notes. This way you know at each step of your procedure, what did you do? How did you modify it? So for example, if it says to use say 2 grams of 2 grams of water, and you use 1.75, you have the space to do that, as well as any other modifications. And sometimes this is just simple observations. Sometimes it's important to know that your lab mate flooded the hood. These can affect your results, and this will really help jog your memory as you're writing your report. And we'll be talking a lot more about this that first week of class. Now, another important part of that pre-lab is the table of reagents. So this should include all the information you need to perform any pre-lab or post-lab calculations. So for example, for an example lab from your lab manual, we're trying to convert 2-methyl-2-butanol into 2-methylbutane. So some pieces of information I'm going to need are the molecular weights and the amounts that I need. So one of the things to note is I listed the molecular weights of my 2-methylbutanol and my 2-methylbutene. I did not list the sulfuric acid. This is because the sulfuric acid, instead of figuring out the grams and converting it to moles, you get the moles instead by making note that it is an 18 molar solution. So volume alone is going to be enough. Also, you want to list the amount you need, but you also want to leave room for the amount you actually use. These two are different, and having a clear designated amount used means you don't necessarily need to dig through your lab manual, your lab notebook when you're writing up your results. Also, make sure to leave space for other information. This could include things like density or concentration, or oftentimes other safety information. So either in this section or in or roughly falling, I want you to include some brief safety information. So these would be major hazards you have to be aware of. So for example, I'd want to make note that 2-methyl butanol and butene both are mild irritants, and that sulfuric acid is highly corrosive and highly exothermic, meaning it releases a lot of heat when you mix it with solutions. These are going to be good safety pieces of information to know. Now, you can quickly obtain some of this information by something called safety data sheets, and these should be available through the link below. Otherwise, you can often find it through a quick internet search. Now, some other big general lab policies is most of the stuff you should be fairly familiar. I expect everybody to show up to class on time with a pre-completed lab notebook. If that lab notebook is not complete, I can't guarantee that you will be able to safely complete the lab, so you're not going to be allowed to enter the lab until it is done. This means you may not be able to finish the lab. So please make sure you finish your notebook beforehand. Again, exception for the first week, since you're still learning how to complete it, I still will encourage you to try and get it done first. Second, if you need to miss class, please let me know as soon as possible. That way we can try and, if you know ahead of time, such as if you're engaged in sports, this will allow us to make accommodations, move you to a separate lab section. This can be especially problematic as the lab sections are quite full this semester. So I might need to make sure there will be space for you. If you just wake up that morning and not feeling good, try and send me an email as soon as you know. That way I'm not sitting there waiting for you to start lab. Note that there is 2 makeup lab sections, one at the end of the semester, one during semester break. So if you need to, you can try and make one of those 2 makeup labs. Again, because we have so many students and I'm going to be pretty busy with grading, I can't necessarily guarantee I'll be able to accept late assignments. And if I've already handed back the assignments, I really don't want you to be able to take advantage of that. So again, if you know that an assignment will or might be late, please let me know ahead of time. It's better to ask for permission than forgiveness in this sense. So those are some of the big things to keep an eye out for the semester. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, take care.